Well, thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Madam Secretary. I want to follow the line of questioning that the Chairman started. How long did it take for Boeing to earn its ODA status, and how many people do they have dedicated to the ODA process?
Well, they build a lot of planes, so I'm speculating a bit here. It's been a long-going process. It's not only with Boeing, it's with whoever is building the airplane, big or small. This is a practice that's been, decades in the making. There are about 400 people, I think, that are involved in this.
Thank you. And again, this touches on one of the concerns you just expressed, but to what extent are ODA staff at Boeing or at other enterprises awarded incentive bonuses if they meet company-established certification deadlines? Are there financial incentives that may make decisions more difficult in terms of technical aspects?
I'm not able to answer that question.
Is that something that the IG would pursue?
Certainly, and if you suggest that, we will do that.
Thank you. How many FAA personnel worked on some aspect of the Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft certification? Do you have an idea?
I think just on the certification, it's more than 400. But the whole FAA is involved, and there's the air traffic control. That's about 15,000 air traffic controllers, about 33,000 in air traffic control, and the remainder basically is all the certification.
I would assume, and again, this is an assumption, that there was a team at Boeing that was focused almost exclusively on the 737 MAX project.
Yeah, I think it was about 400, as I mentioned.
400 versus a number that you'll provide us in terms of the ODA personnel at Boeing, so we'll get a rough idea of
yeah,
how.
I do not know how many at Boeing.
One of the issues is, and this I think I hope you're going to pursue in your various investigations, is just the span of control, the ability of a limited number of FAA to actually effectively involve themselves with the Boeing personnel in this case, and that's an issue I hope you can get back to us on.
I share your concern on that as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. One of the things too is across all of our federal agencies we have challenges of recruiting very talented technologists because of the competition from private enterprise. So what is the FAA doing to address this challenge, and do you have the necessary personnel with the right skill sets? I mean, there's one possibility that you could have had very well-meaning and very well-trained people there, but for these new, very sophisticated systems, they didn't have the same level of expertise as their counterparts, so by default, they had to essentially agree, even if there were their questions. So how are you going to address this challenge of getting the very best people, technologists involved?
I think the FAA is pretty experienced. Again, they don't build airplanes, which is why this ODA system was initially put in place. But we have very experienced professionals. Let me also answer your previous question. The Boeing ODA process took about 2 years, and there are 1,461 Boeing employees working on the ODA.
And you're about 400 FAA people involved directly in that program, roughly.
Right.
Thank you. There was discussion after the Lion Air accident, not only discussion but activity, to make a modification, a software patch, if you will, with respect to lessons learned, unfortunately, from the Lion Air crash. What modifications, what are those modifications intended to achieve, and why was the aircraft allowed to fly in the meantime? If there was a recognition that you had to fix something and the aircraft was still allowed to fly, how was that decision made?
You know, the FAA is a very professional, fact-based organization, and they don't make decisions that are too hasty. They take great pride in ensuring, again, the safety of the entire world's international travelers. The Americans have always been the gold standard for aviation safety, and it is FAA who has built that reputation over time. Again, they're very fact-based. And when Lion Air 610 crash occurred, they immediately issued an emergency airworthiness directive, alerting the entire international community to this problem that they saw, and to be careful and to know how to react. Then Boeing began to update and look at their software, and that was a sequence of events. I hope I may also, one other thing.
Yes, ma'am.
On the initial point about pilot training, I don't want to say too much about that because it's really important that we remember who is in charge of this investigation. This is an international investigation, and it has additional complications, diplomacy issues, and we want to make sure that we don't say anything that is hastily said, that we are careful in our words, because again, we want to show respect to the Ethiopian government and not jump to any conclusions at this point, because the Ethiopian government is the authority that controls the crash investigation.
And
They can
finally,
invite or disinvite anybody they would like.
yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Finally, I'm under the impression that there are additional safety sensors that could have been purchased by the airlines, and some airlines did, and some airlines did not. Do you intend to require Boeing to retrofit all the aircraft with the full suite of safety sensors in order to provide maximum assurances to the public?
I don't think we're there yet, but it is very questionable if these were safety-oriented additions, why they were not part of the required template of measures that should go into an airplane. So this is one of the questions which, again, the IG hopefully will help us answer, and also the special committee.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary.